She said she was anxious during finals, so I switched seats with her. Later, I found out she only wanted to sit closer to her friend so she could cheat. And guess who everyone blamed? Me. Finals week was always a nightmare for me, the kind of week where your stomach feels heavy every morning and your brain won't stop buzzing even when you try to sleep. I was sitting in the exam hall trying to calm myself down when she walked up to me. Her name was Lila. She was the kind of girl everyone noticed, always laughing, always with friends, always looking like the world was built to make her comfortable. She leaned down next to my desk and whispered, "Hey, can we switch seats?" I'm feeling anxious sitting here. I looked up, surprised. Her seat was only 2 rows behind mine. I couldn't see what was so different about mine, but her face looked pale and her eyes darted around like she really was nervous. Anxiety. That word carried weight. I've struggled with it myself, so I didn't question her. I just nodded and started gathering my stuff. The teacher hadn't started distributing the exam papers yet, so I figured it wasn't a big deal. We switched quietly, and she gave me a grateful smile that almost made me feel good for helping her. I slid into her seat, a little further from the front, and tried to refocus. When the papers were handed out, I buried myself in the questions. My heart was racing, my pen tapping the desk, but I managed to find some rhythm. I didn't even notice what was going on around me until halfway through when I heard a faint whisper. My head lifted just a little, and that's when I saw her, Lila, leaning slightly to her right, tilting her paper, whispering numbers under her breath. Her best friend, Mia, sat just a desk over, nodding and scribbling furiously. My stomach dropped. The anxiety excuse wasn't real. She had switched seats because she wanted to be closer to her friend, to cheat. I froze, my pen hovering above the page. My chest tightened. Not because of the exam, but because of what I just realized. She used me. She played on my kindness, my empathy, and now here I was, sitting in her old seat while she made it look like I'd helped her plan this whole thing. For the rest of the exam, I couldn't concentrate. Every scratch of my pen felt heavier. I kept thinking, what if someone noticed? What if the teacher saw them whispering and then remembered that I'd switched seats with her? What if I got dragged into it? By the time the exam ended, I felt sick. Students were already chatting as they handed in their papers, and I caught a glimpse of Lila and Mia giggling together. When our eyes met, she didn't even look guilty. She gave me a small wink, like we shared some secret. But it wasn't a secret. It was a trap. If someone told you they were anxious before an exam, would you switch seats with them without asking why? When I walked out of the exam hall, the air felt heavier than usual. Normally after finals, everyone rushes out with sighs of relief, complaining about the hard questions or laughing about how badly they think they did. But that day, I felt like I was carrying a secret on my back, one that wasn't even mine to carry. I clutched my bag tighter and walked faster, trying not to think about Lila's wink, trying not to think about the way she had leaned closer to Mia. I wanted to pretend it hadn't happened, that I hadn't been tricked. But whispers spread fast, faster than wildfire in a dry forest. By the time I reached my locker, I could hear it. 2 girls near the end of the hall were whispering. She helped Lila switch seats so they could cheat. My heart dropped. They were talking about me. I tried to keep my face neutral, but my cheeks burned. How did they already know? How could something so quick, so small, be twisted and spread across the whole class? Later, during lunch, it was worse. A group of students at the next table looked at me and then leaned in toward each other, whispering. One of them actually pointed. I heard my name. My hands tightened around my sandwich until I didn't even feel hungry anymore. The truth was simple. I hadn't cheated. I hadn't planned anything. I'd only switched seats because I thought I was helping. But the truth never spreads as fast as a good story, and the story going around was that I was part of their plan. I wanted to confront Lila, but when I finally gathered the courage to approach her, she was sitting with Mia and their friends, laughing like nothing had happened. I hesitated, my words drying up in my throat. What was I supposed to say? Hey, can you stop letting people think I helped you cheat? She'd just deny it. I knew she would. That night, lying in bed, I kept replaying everything in my head. Her pale face, her nervous voice, the word anxious hanging in the air like bait. I fell for it. I gave her exactly what she wanted, and now I was paying for it. The next day, the rumors only got louder. A boy in my math class smirked when I walked in and said, "Hey, nice teamwork with Lila yesterday." His friends laughed, and I could feel the sting of humiliation creep up my neck. I wanted to scream, to tell everyone the truth, but something inside me held back. Maybe it was fear of making it worse. Maybe it was the shock of realizing how quickly people could turn. Either way, I kept quiet. For now, if rumors spread about you that weren't true, would you ignore them and hope they faded, or would you fight back immediately? By the 3rd day of finals, I was barely sleeping. My head was full of whispers, my body heavy with the weight of eyes on me. It wasn't just the students anymore. I started to notice the teachers looking at me differently. Not all of them, but enough to make me feel uneasy. That morning, our homeroom teacher, Mrs. Carter, stopped me as I was leaving class. "Can I have a word with you?" she asked, her voice calm but serious. My stomach dropped. I followed her to the side of the room, away from the chatter of students packing their bags. She folded her arms. "I heard there was some seat switching during the last exam." I nodded quickly. "Yes, Lila asked me to switch with her because she said she was anxious." "Oh, I didn't think it was a problem." Her eyes searched my face. "You know, seat assignments are meant to prevent distractions, and you know academic integrity is very important." The way she said it made my throat tighten. She wasn't accusing me outright, but her tone carried suspicion. "I didn't know she was going to cheat," I blurted out, maybe too fast, too defensive. Mrs. Carter raised an eyebrow. "Cheating?" she repeated, tilting her head. I realized I just said the word out loud when she hadn't. Heat rushed to my cheeks. My voice cracked. I saw her talking to Mia during the test. I realized too late why she wanted to switch Mrs. Carter. Sighed, rubbing her temple. "I'll have to look into this. For now, stay in your assigned seat during every exam. Understood?" I nodded, but inside I was unraveling. She didn't say she believed me. She didn't say I was innocent. She just said she'd look into it, which meant the suspicion was still hanging over me like a storm cloud. When I walked out of the classroom, Lila was waiting near the lockers with Mia. They both smirked when they saw me. Lila leaned closer and whispered loud enough for me to hear, "Thanks for covering for me." My fists clenched. She wanted me to look guilty. She wanted me to carry the blame while she kept her perfect image untarnished. The worst part? She was succeeding. That evening, I overheard two classmates talking in the library. "The teacher knows about the cheating," one whispered, "but she can't prove it unless someone confesses. I bet they'll both get in trouble, both," meaning me and Lila. My chest felt tight as I sat there, staring at my textbook without reading a single word. I thought I'd done something small, something harmless, something kind. Instead, I'd walked straight into a trap that could ruin my reputation, and finals week wasn't even over. If you were in my position, would you tell the teacher everything you saw, even if it meant people would call you a snitch? The next morning, I walked into school with my headphones on, blasting music just to drown out the noise in my head. I wanted to pretend nothing was wrong, that the rumors were just in my imagination, but the moment I stepped into the cafeteria, I knew that wasn't true. My best friend Jenna waved me over. Normally, she's the kind of person who greets me with a hug or a joke, but that day she just stared at me like she was trying to read my face. I slid into the seat across from her, forcing a smile. "What's going on?" she asked right away. No small talk, no smile, just blunt concern. I froze, my tray untouched in front of me. "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb. Everyone's saying you switched seats so Lila could cheat. Is it true?" Her voice wasn't angry, but it was sharp enough to sting. I felt my throat close up. This was Jenna, my best friend. She was supposed to know me better than anyone. "No," I said firmly. "She told me she was anxious." I thought I was helping. That's all. Jenna frowned, leaning back. "Then why are people saying you looked like you knew? That you were covering for her?" I shook my head quickly. "Because that's what Lila wants people to think. She's making me look guilty so she doesn't get caught." For a moment, Jenna was quiet, then she sighed. "I want to believe you. I really do, but it looks bad." Her words cut deeper than any rumor. If even Jenna was doubting me, what chance did I have with everyone else? At lunch, things got worse. I sat down at our usual table, but half the group avoided my eyes. One of the guys muttered under his breath, "Guess cheaters stick together." My stomach twisted, and I pushed my tray away. Lila walked past us then, laughing loudly with Mia. She glanced at me, her smirk sharp like a knife. She was enjoying this. She was feeding on the chaos she'd created. That night, I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. I wasn't the kind of person who cried easily, but the frustration, the unfairness, the helplessness, it all crashed into me at once. I had done nothing wrong. Nothing. Yet I was the one being treated like the villain. I wanted to scream the truth from the rooftops. But another part of me whispered, would anyone even believe me? Or would it just make me look desperate? The worst part was knowing finals weren't done. There were still exams left, still chances for her to play her game, still chances for me to get dragged down with her, and I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get even worse. If your best friend started doubting you because of rumors, would you cut them off or try harder to prove your innocence? The morning of the next exam, my stomach was in knots. I walked into the hall early just to avoid the crowd, slipping into my assigned seat before anyone could approach me. I wasn't taking chances this time, but of course she came. Lila? Her presence was like a shadow that clung to me whether I wanted it or not. She strolled in with Mia, her laughter echoing across the room, and then her eyes landed on me. I could almost see the wheels turning in her head. Sure enough, just as the teacher started placing exam papers on the desks, she sauntered over. "Hey," she whispered, her tone sugary sweet. "Can we switch again?" No, I cut her off, my voice sharper than I meant. Heads turned. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. Her smile faltered for a split second before she replaced it with a pout. "Why not? I thought we had a system." "A system?" My voice shook. "You tricked me last time." "I'm not doing it again." The teacher glanced in our direction, raising an eyebrow. "Ladies, please take your seats. The exam is starting." Lila sighed dramatically, loud enough for others to hear. "Fine. Don't help me then." The way she said it made it sound like I was being selfish, like I was refusing to do something I should. I clenched my fists under the desk. She wanted me to explode, to make a scene, but I bit my tongue and kept my eyes on the paper in front of me. Throughout the exam, I could feel her gaze on me, sharp and calculating. I didn't dare look up, but I knew she was planning something. She couldn't let me get away with refusing her. When the exam finally ended, I rushed out of the room, hoping to escape before she cornered me. But she was faster. She caught me in the hallway, grabbing my arm. "You made me look stupid back there," she hissed, her pretty face twisted with irritation. I yanked my arm free. "You made me look like a cheater." Her eyes narrowed. "Careful what you say. People already think you're guilty. If I tell them you were in on it, they'll believe me. Not you." Her words sank into me like ice. She was right. She had the charm, the friends, the perfect reputation. I had none of that. If it came down to her word against mine, I knew who people would side with. I stood frozen as she walked away, her hair swinging behind her like nothing had happened. My body trembled with anger, but my heart ached with something heavier, fear. Because now I knew. This wasn't just about a seat switch. Lila was making it personal, and she wasn't going to stop until she got what she wanted. If you were in my shoes, would you confront Lila publicly to expose her or stay quiet to protect yourself? By the third exam, the pressure was eating me alive. I barely slept. My notes blurred together when I tried to study, and I kept replaying Lila's threat in my head. If I tell them you were in on it, they'll believe me. She was right. People already doubted me. Even Jenna, my best friend, had looked at me like she wasn't sure. That hurt more than anything. The exam hall buzzed with nervous energy that morning. Everyone was reviewing flashcards, whispering formulas, biting nails. I sat quietly, staring at my empty desk, determined not to give Lila a single chance to manipulate me again. But when she walked in, the atmosphere shifted. She had this way of commanding attention, like the air bent around her. She didn't even glance at me this time, which should have been a relief, except it wasn't. It felt worse, like she had a plan already set in motion. The exam started. I buried myself in the questions, my pen scratching across the paper. For once, I tried not to think about her, just about the answers. But halfway through, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. Mia leaned forward slightly, her lips moving. Lila tilted her head the tiniest bit, covering her mouth with her hand like she was adjusting her hair. My chest tightened. They were doing it again, whispering, signaling, cheating, right there in plain sight. I froze. Should I raise my hand? Tell the teacher? But the moment I did, I knew what would happen. Lila would deny it. She'd point back at me, remind everyone that I switched seats with her in the first exam. The teacher's suspicious look flashed in my memory. It would be my word against hers and I'd lose. So I did nothing. I stared at my exam paper, forcing myself to focus. My hand trembled as I wrote, every question blurring under the weight of my guilt. Not guilt for cheating, but guilt for letting it happen, for letting her control me through silence. When the exam ended, I stayed in my seat longer than usual, pretending to check my answers while the room emptied. I didn't want to walk out with the whispers waiting for me, but eventually I had to. Sure enough, the hallway was buzzing. I caught fragments of conversations as I passed. They're definitely helping each other. I saw them whispering again. But she didn't switch seats this time, right? And then the dagger. Maybe she doesn't have to. Maybe she gives them answers some other way. That was when I realized something terrifying. The rumors weren't fading. They were growing, mutating, shaping me into a villain I didn't even recognize. By the time I got home that evening, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I shut my bedroom door, buried my face into my pillow, and screamed. Because no matter what I did, help, refuse, stay quiet, stay honest, it felt like Lila had already won. If you saw cheating happening near you, would you risk speaking up or stay silent to protect yourself? The next morning, my worst fear came true. As soon as I walked into homeroom, Mrs. Carter asked me to stay after class. Her voice was calm but clipped, the kind of tone teachers use when they already suspect you of something. My hand shook as I slid into my seat. The entire class seemed louder than usual, students laughing, talking, shuffling papers, yet all I could hear was the pounding in my chest. When the bell rang and everyone filed out, Mrs. Carter closed the door. She sat at her desk, fingers steeple. I've been hearing a lot of troubling reports, she said slowly. Cheating, seat switching, students whispering during exams. I swallowed hard. I know, but I wasn't. She raised her hand to stop me. Your name keeps coming up. My stomach dropped. What? I didn't do anything. My voice cracked, too loud in the quiet room. She leaned back in her chair, studying me. Then why would multiple students suggest you were involved? Because Lila was smart, because she knew how to twist people, because her smile was strong enough to blind them to the truth. But saying that out loud would sound like I was just blaming someone else. I switched seats with her once, I said, my voice trembling. She said she was anxious. I didn't know she wanted to cheat. Mrs. Carter's eyes narrowed slightly. Did you see her cheating? Yes, I whispered, then louder. Yes. I saw her whispering to Mia. That's why I refused to switch again. For a long moment, she just looked at me. My palms were sweating, my throat dry. Finally, she sighed. If what you're saying is true, then I need to speak to her as well. But understand this, accusations are serious. If you're lying, the consequences will be worse than the rumors. I'm not lying, I said quickly, but even to my own ears, my voice sounded desperate. When she dismissed me, I walked out feeling like I'd just dug myself into a deeper hole. Because the moment I stepped into the hallway, there she was, Lila, waiting. She smiled sweetly, but her eyes were cold. So, you told her? My breath caught. What? You think I don't know? She tilted her head, her perfect hair falling over her shoulder. Mrs. Carter called me in right after you. I know exactly what you said. Panic surged through me. Then maybe she'll finally see the truth. But Lila just laughed softly, leaning closer until her words brushed my ear. Or maybe she'll believe me instead. After all, I don't look desperate. You do. Her perfume lingered as she walked away, leaving me trembling in the middle of the hallway. I realized then that this wasn't just a battle about exams anymore. This was war, and Lila was winning every move. If you were accused unfairly, would you defend yourself loudly? Or stay calm and let the truth hopefully come out on its own? By lunchtime, the entire school seemed to know. Whispers followed me down the hall, heads turned when I passed, and even people I'd barely spoken to before now looked at me like I was guilty. I slid my tray onto our usual table, but Jenna's eyes wouldn't meet mine. My stomach twisted. She'd been my anchor through so many storms, but this time she looked uncertain. Finally, she spoke. I heard Mrs. Carter pulled you in this morning. I froze. Yeah, she wanted to know what happened. And you told her it was Lila. Yes, I said firmly. Because it was. Jenna, you have to believe me. But she cut me off, her voice low. Everyone's saying you just blamed her to save yourself. The words hit like a punch. My best friend, the one person I thought would stand by me. I would never, I whispered, my throat tight. You know me. You know I wouldn't cheat. She looked torn, her fork twisting in her fingers. I want to believe you. But Lila says you begged her to switch seats, that it was your idea, that you pressured her because you wanted to sit closer to the board. My chest burned. That's a lie. She came to me. She made up the whole anxiety thing just to trick me. But Jenna just sighed, her shoulders slumping. I don't know what to believe anymore. I sat there in silence, the cafeteria noise roaring around me. Every laugh, every whisper, every clatter of trays felt amplified, like the whole room was closing in. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife deeper, Lila walked past. She didn't even stop, just tossed a glance at me and said, loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, some people don't know how to own their mistakes. Her friends laughed. I stared down at my untouched food, my hands trembling. That night, I replayed it all in my head. The seat switch, the wink, the rumors, Jenna's doubt, Mrs. Carter's suspicion. Every time I thought about speaking up, fear clamped down on me. If even Jenna didn't believe me, who would? But then something inside me shifted. I was tired of being cornered, tired of being silent, tired of letting Lila control the story. For the first time, anger outweighed fear. I sat at my desk, opened my notebook, and started writing everything down. Every detail, every word she said to me, every smirk, every whisper, every trick. If no one wanted to believe me now, fine. But I was going to have proof. Because if Lila wanted a war, she was about to get one. If your best friend started believing someone else's lies about you, would you keep trying to win them back or let them go? The night after writing everything down, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, my mind buzzing with plans. For days, I'd let Lila control the story, twisting everyone's perception until even Jenna doubted me. But now I decided it was time to flip the script. The next exam was scheduled for the morning, and I knew she wouldn't resist trying again. Cheating was her game, and her arrogance made her careless. If I wanted to prove my innocence, I had to catch her in the act. The plan formed slowly, shaky at first, but sharper the more I thought it through. I'd sit in my assigned seat like always. I wouldn't speak to her, wouldn't even look at her, but this time, I'd be ready. When I walked into the exam hall the next day, my hands were clammy, but my focus was razor sharp. I slid into my seat, placed my pen neatly on the desk, and glanced at the teacher, who was busy stacking papers. Sure enough, Lila strolled in like she owned the room. Her hair perfect, her smile perfect, her confidence unshaken. She didn't approach me this time. Maybe she thought she didn't need to. She just walked straight to her desk near Mia. The exam started. Silence fell, except for the scratching of pens and the occasional cough. I kept my eyes glued to my paper, but my ears strained for the whispers. And then I heard them, soft, deliberate, almost too quiet to notice unless you were listening. I shifted slightly in my chair, angling my head just enough to see. Lila leaned toward Mia, her pencil tapping in a rhythm, her lips forming silent words. Mia nodded, scribbling quickly on her sheet. This was it, proof. I raised my hand slowly. My heart pounded so loudly I thought the whole room could hear it. Mrs. Carter looked up from her desk and walked over. Yes, she whispered. I hesitated for half a second, fear clawing at my throat. But then I remembered Lila's smirk, her threats, her lies. I forced the words out. Look at them. Their cheating. Mrs. Carter's eyes flicked toward where I nodded. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she moved silently across the room, her shoes tapping lightly on the floor. She stopped right behind Lila and Mia. The look on Lila's face when she realized was priceless. Her eyes widened, her pen froze midair, and Mia's hand jerked back from her paper. Both of you, Mrs. Carter said firmly, her voice carrying through the hall. Collect your things and come with me. The entire room gasped, heads swiveled. My chest felt lighter than it had in days. For once, it wasn't me. For once, the spotlight was on her. But as Lila stood, her face flushed with anger and humiliation, her eyes locked on mine. And the look she gave me wasn't fear. It was a promise. This wasn't over. Would you have raised your hand and risked everyone's attention, or stayed quiet and let her keep getting away with it? The room buzzed after Mrs. Carter escorted Lila and Mia out. Whispers rippled across the hall, but for the first time, I didn't shrink under them. This time, the whispers weren't about me. They were about her. When the exam ended, I walked out with my head a little higher, though my heart still pounded. I expected relief, but instead, I felt a strange mix of triumph and dread. Because I knew Lila, and I knew she wouldn't go down quietly. By lunch, the news had already spread. Did you hear? Mrs. Carter caught Lila cheating. People huddled in groups, repeating the story like wildfire. I caught glimpses of disbelief on some faces, smug satisfaction on others. For once, no one was pointing at me. But Lila wasn't done. When she came back later, her perfect smile was gone, replaced by icy calm. She walked straight to me, ignoring the curious stares around us. You think you won? She said softly, her voice steady but her eyes burning. I swallowed hard. I didn't think anything. I just told the truth. Her lips curved into something between a smirk and a snarl. Truth doesn't matter. Stories matter. And I'm better at telling them. Then she turned and walked away, her hair swinging like nothing had happened. I sat frozen, her words echoing in my mind. Maybe she was right. Maybe stories were stronger than truth. Because even though people were finally doubting her, I could still feel eyes on me, measuring, questioning. Whispers don't disappear overnight. When I found Jenna later, she looked at me differently, softer, almost guilty. I guess you were right, she admitted, her voice low. I'm sorry I doubted you. The apology should have felt good. Instead, it left me hollow, because the damage had already been done. Finals ended 2 days later, and the relief of finishing the exams was nothing compared to the relief of leaving the tension behind. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the stain of those rumors would linger, that some people would always remember me as the girl who switched seats so her friend could cheat. But here's the thing. I learned something. I learned that kindness can be used against you, that not everyone who asks for help deserves it, that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't mean staying silent or protecting others. It means protecting yourself. I also learned that stories do matter, so this is mine, my side, the one no one else can twist. Because in the end, people will believe whatever version they want, but at least I know the truth, and that has to be enough. Do you think people will remember the truth in the long run, or will the rumors always stick no matter what?